Hello and welcome back to episode 117 of the Building Sustainability Podcast. My name is Jeffrey Hart, and every fortnight join me as I talk to designers, builders, makers, dreamers and doers. Together we can explore the wide world of sustainability in the built environment by talking to wonderful people who are doing excellent things. Today, that wonderful person is Sam Goetz from the company Woven in the Bone. Sam is most certainly doing excellent things. She creates stunning woven cloth on her pedal-powered looms in Buckie up on the Moray Firth coast in Scotland. While I was attempting to cycle the coast of Scotland last year, I was given a tip-off that Sam would be a great person to stop in on and have a chat. I can't tell you how much of a lovely time I had. We drank endless coffee and chatted all morning. I was totally enthralled by the process. The machines gave me a little childlike excitement. The beautiful fabrics were stunning. That, and as you're going to hear, by Sam's really open and honest way of discussing the highs and lows of her work, the details, the difficulties, and the journey. So stay tuned for that. Before the episode, we have the very briefest of podcast news, and that is we have just one new patron this month, and that is Louise Leher Jorgensen. I hope I've pronounced that right, Louise. Thank you so much to Louise and to everyone who already supports the podcast. As I say every week, it really does mean the world to me that you want to support this podcast and help there be more episodes. It is very much a labour of love. So I'm so pleased that you get something from it and want to support it. If you would like to support this podcast and help fund more episodes and just pay for the day-to-day running, then please head to patreon.com/building sustainability. In return for your support, you will get advert-free listening, bonus content from the podcast guests, including whole episodes that won't be available anywhere else. You also get 10% off all craft courses at Netacombe Craft School, and of course, your very own shout out on the podcast, just like Louise. And if you really want to support the podcast, there is a higher tier, which, as well as all the other rewards, I will carve you a wooden spoon that you can eat your breakfast with. As per usual, all details are in the show notes. There are links to the people we've talked about, things you might want to look into. I am giving myself a break from social media. I'm really enjoying it, I have to say. The only thing that doesn't really work is that I can't share all these podcasts. So if you can share this episode, I would love it so much. I always see a little spike in downloads every time someone shares. So it really does work. I'm actually just about to hire a social media person because not being on there, well, it's feeling good for me personally, but I don't think it's very good for the podcast. So hopefully there will soon be some sharing happening again from me, and we will catch up on all the ones that I've missed. Okay, so this episode, it was recorded at the end of 2023. Sam and I actually recorded 2 hours of conversation. This is the first half that focuses on the unique aspects of her craft and her business. Sam and I decided that we are going to re-record the second half of the conversation and take it in a slightly different direction. And we're going to look into some of the interesting sustainability issues and solutions in her industry. The second half won't be coming out for a little while. We haven't recorded it yet. So in the meantime, I want you to enjoy this episode. Make sure you have a look at Sam's Instagram page. It is Woven in the Bone. You can see videos of her working at her loom. It's a real audio-visual treat. If you can't imagine what a pedal-powered loom looks like, which I'll be honest, I couldn't before I'd seen one, definitely worth a quick look to see what we're talking about. Okay, I am back at the end. Enjoy the wonderful Sam Goetz of Woven in the Bone.
I am a weaver, textile designer originally, but now I'm a weaver with my own little mini micro mill, making what I call artisan cloth. All wool. I've always worked with wool. my background is in industry and interiors and commercial interiors and things like that, and mills. So it's lovely to have my own little mill that I work away in, mostly on myself, but my sister helps me out, and we make cloth for bespoke tailors primarily, but other businesses as well, mostly in menswear. Most goes to London, some goes all over the world, and we work in a
beautiful
funny
little
shed by a fishing harbour. It's a beautiful, I know, I love it. I'm sorry, I'm on the northeast coast of Scotland.
Yes. Yeah.
In Bucky. Yes. It's all happening in Bucky at the moment.
So the looms that you use, they're quite unique, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're gorgeous. They're gorgeous. I have 3 looms, which vary in age from around 1938 up to around 1980, and they were all made by what was once a very big loom manufacturer in Yorkshire, called George Hattersley and Sons. So they're all made in Yorkshire. George Hattersley's been around since, beginning of the Industrial Revolution. They claim that one of their looms was smashed up by the Luddites back in the day, and their market was primarily, Industrial Revolution. Would have been originally water powered, but then electric, and big, massive cast iron looms. And as I understand it, and it's quite hard to find out the history of the model of loom that I've got, but they developed a small scale version of their big industrial, their big heavy looms. My understanding or interpretation, perhaps, because they were involved, they went to all sorts of the big fairs that used to run, Crystal Palace and trade exhibitions, a big exhibition. So I know they went to India around the 1900s, before and after 1900s. So I think they were developing a smaller loom for export markets, having kind of.
So were they kind of the big name in loom, or one of the big names in loom manufacturing?
Well, there was a few. I mean, obviously in Yorkshire, it's the sort of centre of textile production, all. So there was different ones, and there's been many that I wouldn't remember, but certainly Dobcross was another one, and what one by one, all those factories kind of closed down as the textile industry took more of a dive, and there would have been competition from overseas as well. So I think my little loom was a sort of offshoot, trying to find new markets, but it kind of most famously they ended up in the Hebrides, and the Harris Tweed industry took them under their wing. It perfectly suited their sort of situation, where you had individual weavers in their own sheds. So, but it also was in mainland Scotland, the northeast, up Brora way. There were Sutherland way. So, and the Borders. So they were basically a smaller version of the big industrial looms, still cast iron.
That's the big
but
thing,
pedal
isn't it?
Powered. That's the big thing, yeah. So, so they're particularly.
I think
cute,
for what is an incredibly industrial machine, they are very cute.
They are very cute. So obviously that works very much for me, to my benefit, from the point of view of being on Instagram. But they're each very different characters. It's a love-hate relationship. We're on good terms at the moment. Tuesday was a little bit borderline, and there have been months where I did actually cry on one recording, which I didn't realise I had done till I was listening back. I was like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. But that could be my loom tuning skills and not the loom.
It seemed to me that, these machines look incredibly complicated. And, I think you have to be an engineer to understand. Well, you obviously understand them because of years of
not always.
But it's sort of, it feels like the world of a weaver and an engineer, there isn't much overlap, and you're sort of sitting in the middle of making that machine do what it's supposed to do.
I've got a lovely follower in America who
Nice.
coined the term woveneering. Love that one. Yeah. So, and I think that sort of sums it up. It's a fantastic combination, because I used to work in mills, so I love the sound of machinery, and they're so clever what they do. Machines do, and these ones, because they definitely look sort of torture chamber Victorian, kind of thing, but they're just so fascinating. So to be able to work with them, and it's not just a press button, where you're actually I feel everything through my feet. Nothing on the loom moves unless I put my foot on the pedal, move my foot. So I can tell if it needs oiling, I can tell if the paraffin's evaporated, I can tell if the timing's going out. It's so sensual. That sounds odd to say it, but it is so sensual. And so it kind of, it doesn't feel like a machine, and you might think in other terms.
Yeah. And so when you're on the loom and pedaling away, what is it that you're doing?
I think it's something that I get the impression, just from the way people interact when I post a video, that it just looks awfully simple.
Yeah,
and you
just have a nice time drinking a cup of tea.
But actually, you just have a nice time. Think about what to cook for dinner. But it tends to be, well, I find it quite meditative, in that it's very much about focus, or I find I have to anyway on my loom. And again, every loom's different, but my loom seems to be particularly temperamental. So I'm focused on what's happening, particularly focused on what's happening with the shuttle going back and forth, because you fill the shuttle with a little cartridge sort of thing called a pern, which has got the weft yarn wound around it. And as it's going back and forth across the loom at 25 miles an hour or whatever, you're trying to keep an eye, and you've got multiple shuttles happening, alternatively. So you've got to remember which is the one that's running out. And so I'm really most of the time, I'd say the focus is watching for the weft running out. But at the same time, like I said, with your feet, you feel things. And so often, like a bit of leather might have stretched, so the shuttle isn't going. This has been my conundrum this week, is for some reason one shuttle was going slowly,
right,
when the others were going fast, and I still haven't quite worked that one out. I mean, it could be that the shed timing wasn't right, or it could be that one particular wooden shuttle. I mean, the trouble is my boxes, when you've got old parts and one, in this case, the spring in the box, one had broken, which I've not had before. Thankfully, I had a spare, but it's a slightly different shape to all the other ones. So now one shuttle, you have to really force it out the box, and the other 5 shuttles go really nice and easily. So in the pedal cycle, I'm counting along. I'm counting every thread in the pattern, so I know when I'm going to come to the one that's heavier, so I can give it a little extra bit of welly to make sure it gets all the way across without getting stuck in the middle and causing a problem.
Yeah.
And me getting grumpy. So that's sort of, so yeah, so there's a lot. I actually find it's, I mean, strangely satisfying, but it's also in the day I was talking to somebody else who was saying that, you know, they reckoned that, because I was saying how I leave the weaving till the end of the day. Like, I have to do everything else first, all the admin and the stock putting away and the emails and stuff. It's like you have to sort of clear a headspace to do the weaving. But also, and she was saying, oh, is it like, you know, when you save the best to last on your dinner plate? And I said, no, it's procrastination, because actually that's I kind of half dread it. Because I find that's the hardest part of the business is the weaving, because that's when things can go wrong and it's out of my control and I don't know how to fix it. And so I annoy myself that I don't get on and started earlier, so therefore I don't finish my target till late. I know there's a big part of me, it's just avoiding it. I mean, I love it when it's working.
Yeah.
When it's
so
working,
difficult, isn't it? I've been doing quite a lot of pricing
really
of jobs recently, and it's factoring in the things that you can't, you know there's going to be delays from a thing breaking and you have to go get another one, but they haven't got it in stock, so you have to go further, and then you've lost a day, and so a job that should take 1 day is taken 2. And it's sort of, how do you factor in all of those potential things that might go wrong when you desperately in your head want to be the optimist that says, oh, of course nothing will go wrong?
Absolutely. I think that's the second hardest thing about the business. And also because I'm planning my production now about a year in advance. So, and even this summer, I thought I'd had a terrible summer the one before and been jam-packed and not got a break. So this summer I tried to add in time after every order as a gap, thinking at some point one of those gaps I'll have a whole week and I can take a break in August. That would be nice. It didn't happen. Because as you said, you're an optimist, and it doesn't seem to. I mean, I guess it's a nice thing in that it doesn't seem to matter. I mean, I'm 10 years now, and it doesn't seem to matter that that's happened every time for 10 years, and I still haven't learnt to go, no, stuff goes wrong, add in an extra week.
For me, it feels, I feel like I'm ripping off the client by factoring in that stuff, because it's, it's a thing that doesn't really exist, this mythical time. I know that's not the right mentality, because it is my time, whatever it is. But
yeah. Yeah, I think, I suppose I want to, I want to be professional, and I want to be able to give the idea that I know what I'm doing. And therefore, and like anything else, we have certain expectations these days. I mean, gosh, the delivery dates, as soon as you place your order, the delivery date will be, um, but I'm trying to give delivery dates 6 months in advance, um, and even building in the stuff that goes wrong. I think the part of the reason maybe I'm not learning uh, is because every time that something goes wrong, it seems to be a new something going wrong. So it's not like I could anticipate it. Um, because I am actually quite an anxious person. Uh, Anxiety, but I've always kind of seen my anxiety, if it's, if I can manage it, then it's really quite a handy tool. Because if I'm worried, if something comes up that I'm worried that could go wrong, well, at least I've got chance in
Yep.
advance to do something about it, so it doesn't go wrong. The more things you think that could go wrong, the more prepared you can be. uh, but I mean, I made stupid mistakes this year, which again, I think I've been around so long that I should have checked. I checked that, but I hadn't checked that, and oh no, okay, that really throws everything out, and so yeah, anxiety's a big
Small business owner
thing.
anxiety is.
Yeah, in small business, yeah, yeah, it's quite a lot of pressure, and I suppose that's possibly part of the procrastination thing as well. Is something goes wrong, because then either I have to tell somebody I'm going to be late, which I don't like doing, or I don't know I don't know how long it's going to take to fix, uh, and everything after that, because the schedule's already been planned out. I can't actually make up any time. I don't. I'm still not good enough at sort of boundarying off proper downtime. Well, I'm trying to. So then it becomes, well, God, if I have to come in on Sunday, that means I don't get a time. Like, I'm absolutely
And then you're
knackered by
making
the
more
next week.
mistakes
So
because you're knackered.
um, I've cut. Exactly. So it's sort of false economy somehow. So yeah, it's just a lot
Yeah.
of pressure, I guess. But it's still worth it. It's just part of the price you
There's so
pay.
much suffering for our craft, isn't there? Would it be
Oh
craft if
yes,
you
I
weren't
know.
suffering? You'd like to think so, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but we love it. But it's so good. It's so good
So when
as
you're
well.
you're pedaling away, I mean, I'll link to some videos on your Instagram because it's really something you've got to see.
All right.
How much effort are you putting in? Like, do you feel like you've cycled to London and back,
Uh,
or
Well, I think that's possibly, given that you've cycled
I
all the
didn't
way
cycle all
around
the way around
Scotland.
Scotland.
For for you, it would just be a little breeze. Uh, for me, it's, well, again, and that's interesting. The two main looms that we use. So I've got the green loom, and my sister uses the big black dobby loom. Um, and in fact, I gave them a little touch of the pedals on the two of them yesterday, and mine is really, really light compared to Belinda's. So I kind of think of it, it's a bit more like, if you were on one of those bikes at the gym and you can sort of turn the dial and it gets harder. Well, it's a bit more like or cycling on the flat maybe. So there is an effort, and if you didn't cycle you would slow down, but it's a kind of momentum, and except I'm going up and down. And the effort, I imagine, is probably a little bit more in the stopping and starting, because because your feet are going up and down, and there's a very specific point in that cycle where you have to stop, otherwise your shuttle gets stuck. Or so there's quite a lot of, and I'm guessing, and I'm not a physiotherapist or anything. It's probably core strength stuff. That you're using your core muscles as well as you must to stop at the right point. So, and also because this shuttle is flying, there's a lot of it's really, really quick, and so a lot of that effort is and I do lots of different weights of cloth. So with a different weight of cloth, if the yarn's really thick, which is what I tend to do a lot of in the summer because it's all winter coats, there isn't much yarn in the pern in the shuttle, so actually I'm stopping. I did time it once. It's somewhere between 15 and 20 seconds. I'm stopping every 20 seconds to change a pern for 20 seconds and then start pedaling again. So for months I'm just doing this short bursts, and then because I just like getting off my stool. That's fine. Some people will just lean over and change the shuttle, but I tend to stand up, which is probably slower, but it's just a different bit of movement. So then at the moment, this week, I'm doing another cloth where, on saying that first example, it's 350 steps in a metre. The one I'm doing at the moment is 850 steps in a metre.
Oh, I see.
Because the yarn's so much thinner. So it takes a lot longer to weave the metre. So instead of 350 threads in a metre, there's 850 threads in a metre. So I'm sort of nearly doing, 2.5 times as much pedaling in the same hour. So this week I'm quite tired. And at the end of the hour, because I tend to sit for like an hour block, give myself a bit of a target. I was like, the clock's right across from the loom. Okay, I'm sitting down. It's 4:15. I'm going to aim to get to 36 metres by 5:15. And sometimes it will be bang on. I'll go, yes, that's great. And then sometimes something's gone wrong, and actually it's 5:45 by the time I've finished. And then I'm like, I'm ready for a break then. Just even stretch your legs, wind some perns, go to the bathroom, make a cup of tea or something, just 15-minute break, and then get back on and start another 4 metres. So that's my loom. Belinda's loom, sorry, I've rattled on a bit. Belinda's loom's much, much heavier. And we kind of liken it to, I definitely think of hers as more like a steam train. Imagine trying to get it started and push it along the tracks. It takes a mammoth effort, but once it's going, it's just dum, 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 dum. But starting and stopping, that one's even harder than mine. But she's tending to weave finer yarn, so she's doing more pedaling and less stopping. Whereas on my loom, which is where it's much better suited for the heavier stuff, I'm doing lots of starting and stopping, but the looms, the pedals are quite light. So quite different characters, even how they feel. We think of Belinda's loom, or I think of it as like because she used to work with horses. So hers is like a big Clydesdale. Big, solid, reliable. Once you get that moving, it's gonna keep cantering along, whereas mine's a bit of a show pony. And she sort of flicks her head around, and and the shuttles go flying all over the place. And you have to massage her ego.
What
a
sort
lot
of
more.
meterage are you doing in an hour a day? Whatever sort of time?
Well, again, it's a tricky question because there's so much preparation time. So very, very roughly, I'd say 1.5 to 2 days to set up for an order, which is basically getting the yarn in, winding yarn on my lovely old cheese winder. It's a beautiful thing, that one. And then the warping, setting up the warp, doing the warp, taking the warp off the mill onto the beam, then putting the beam on the back of the loom. I might have had to do a draft change, or I might have had to lift all the shafts out the loom and put a new set of shafts in because we do so many different kinds of cloth. You might have to do a draft change, then you have to tie the new warp into the end of the old warp, pull it through, get everything started, make a new pattern card, wind all your perns. So that's before you started weaving. And then the weaving, I would, for my, what I do, I aim in my head for 12 meters a day. But some days will be 4 meters. I think on Wednesday I had problems, and 6 meters. That was just like, pissed me off. And then... but then the next day, for some reason, everything goes well, and suddenly you got 16 meters. It's, oh, that's not so bad then. So, yeah, I can, in a week, I guess you'd probably say 1.5 days of prep and 3.5 days of weaving. But when I say that, the 3.5 days also, I only really start weaving after lunch. Sometimes, like a couple of days this week, it's I do 3 1-hour slots with breaks in between. So that tends to be anywhere from sort of 2 till 6 or 3 till 7 or something like that. And in the mornings, it's all the sampling, and I'm always doing sampling. There's always yarn stock to put away and manage that, try and keep checks of all of everything. Emails, inquiries, doing costings, writing up specs, organising what Belinda's doing. So another way to look at it was, I did work out, I think I do about 1,100 metres a year. I can't remember now. So it kind of worked out half a metre an hour.
Wow.
Over the year.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Because everybody's saying, how much can you make in an hour? And I could do 4 meters if everything worked out well. But that doesn't account for all the other stuff. Yeah. Which I think when anybody's starting out, everybody says it, it's nothing new to say, but how long everything takes and how much is involved, and the actual to run doing a business.
Of the things that you think,
the actual is actually so small. I mean, and I maybe had quite a good idea of that, because in the 20 years I was working, we used to sit, and I used to get really grumpy that I never get any design work. I'm a designer, but I never do any design. And I at one place, I used to keep timesheets just to prove to myself how little design I did.
Wow.
And it was like 5%. And the rest of the job was admin and product development and emails and all that sort of thing. So in that sense, I guess that's not such a surprise. But I think for a lot of people maybe starting out, which is what I did as well at the beginning. I remember writing my little business plan. Oh yes, I'm going to make 150 meters. No, I'll make 50 meters a week. That'll be easy. It's like, still haven't done that. So yeah, but I definitely would say I'm somebody that learns by doing, and I would like to think I'm quite cautious in saying I'm going to do something until I've actually done it and proved I can do it, and how long it takes, and all that kind of stuff.
You told me about, I think you applied for, was it Quest funding? And what was the sort of outcome of that?
Yeah. Well, that was really good, actually. I had got myself through a woman that I worked with in the Hebrides, Sheila Roderick. So we worked together on training projects. She was doing the training, teaching people on these Hattersley looms in the Harris. And I was involved more from a sort of admin point of view from the college in Glasgow. So it's through her that I got my loom. I wouldn't have known how to get one otherwise. But so I had the loom. She had the loom stored for me over in the Hebrides, because I didn't have anywhere to put it. I didn't have the shed then. And basically I was very conscious that, I needed help. I needed training. That's what I'd been watching her train other people. So I basically needed to pay her. I needed to pay to get her over to help me build the loom and train me, because that's her profession, that's her skill. And if I'm starting this as, even if it's not a business, but even more so as a business, then, I need to be able to pay her. So I needed money. So I applied for a couple of different things. One I got told, I didn't get either of them. But so I'm definitely not good at presenting things, I think. But the Quest one was really interesting because at the time there was a new development in our village, the local castle. Was opening up a cafe with their lovely walled garden, and they were going to have artisan studios on the side. So this was like, oh, this is absolutely perfect. There's going to be a big car park. There's going to be loads of visitors. I can see me. And I was living with my mum at the time as a live-in carer, so I could see it was just across the other side of the village. It'll be nice and flexible and blah, blah, blah. But unfortunately that fell through. But when I went down to pitch for the Quest, it was like, I've got this loom, I've got this industry background, and I want to make scarves because that's easy to sell to people that are going to be walking past, see it getting made, blah, blah. Anyway, but for some reason and I had some little scraps of samples. Because I used to do weaving workshops, so I was just using up old bits of yarn. So I had a little scrap that was silver, lime green, and purple check.
Sounds jazzy.
But that was all I had. It was all I had. So that's what I took. And the gentleman on the panel was saying, "See, I think you should be going for bespoke tailors. Bespoke tailors would love that." And I'm looking, really? I said, "But I don't know any bespoke tailors, and I don't know. Like, that's so far away. I'm in a little village in the northeast of Scotland. Like, we don't have many bespoke tailors up there. Anyway, and that's where that's what started the idea of actually I should be trying to do something different. And he sparked my curiosity, I guess, because I didn't know anything about bespoke tailors. I went online, and I was about the time I started on Instagram, so it was an very easy way to do your research. And and I probably spent, because it took me about 3 years to start up, before I went to see my first customer, and all that time I was basically I made something like 300 meters of cloth. Might even have been 600, I can't remember. It was a lot. Just to practice, and because stuff was going wrong all the time, so I'm not going to go and see a customer till I know I can make something. And various things happened as well. Mum had a stroke, so I had to sort of take a bit of time off. And anyway, so by the time I got down to Savile Row, I'd already had a couple of years sort of watching who did what sort of fabrics, what were clearly there was, because you could see the people that were commenting on images, and then, see what people liked, and I suppose get a sense of what was important to either those businesses or to those customers. And that just seemed like it also dawned on me at the time, that in my working life, I've always worked in business to business. So rather than making scarves and try to sell them to anybody and everybody, that wasn't my kind of experience of business. Of trade to me was about building a relationship with your customer. And I'm really lucky in the sort of industry I've worked in, and my experience so far was building up really lovely interactive relationships with people where they appreciate what you do and you appreciate what they do, and it all it builds momentum for the end customer, which is their customer, and they do all the handling of that, because I'm only one person, so to do lots of sales of small items involves so much more invoicing, packaging,
You'd never get
emails,
on the loom.
questions back and forth. I'd never get on the loom, which could be a good thing, but I just wouldn't have anything to sell. Whereas with the trade customers, I'm not trying to get to know everybody new every time to get the next sale. You're building up a rapport, and if I see something now, I can go and think, I know somebody that would like that, or they do the same, so it just suits me. I love that. I love my customers. It's so I'm very lucky in that sense. So I have to say, so it was getting the rejection from Quest that probably made a significant difference to how I was able
that's
to
the power,
have
isn't
a
it,
business,
of one
really.
little comment,
and the fact
that's
one little comment
changed your life.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it possibly worked also because it kind of made sense to me when I thought about, like, in terms of this business to business thing. And that was, I've got a lot more experience of knocking on a door and going and sitting at a table with a business customer and showing them my work than I have standing at a table in a craft market. I've just never done that. So So it totally fed into my experience already in
Yeah.
and that was something I was quite comfortable with. So I think
Yeah.
that
So
probably
what
made a
did you
big
do?
difference too.
Did you just head down to Savile Row?
Well, like I said, yeah, well, no, sort of. I the year before, I went to London Craft Week. Had a series of open day sort of things, part of London Craft Week. So a couple of the tailors had opened their doors for that, or they were doing tours or something. So me and my pal Paula went off around doing all these tours with my little bag of samples, just in case. Um, and we got chatting to people, and I got my samples out, and I was one lime green one, and going back to the lime green, and there was one tailor in one of the Savile Row tailors who just loved it. It was like, oh, I would love that, so it was there was sort of, oh, okay, so it's maybe not so bizarre an idea. And then after that, unfortunately, I had to sort of take some time off for mum, but the time I sort of the next summer, I think it was summer 2013, maybe the first time. By then I was following everybody. I'd read Richard Anderson's book, and I had a bit of background of who was doing what, and I'd sent off a letter in advance with some swatches of samples, a little sort of printed flyer with some nice photos, and the Woven in the Bone poem, which is the name of the business, Donald S. Murray's poem. Sent that off with a letter basically saying, hi, I'm Sam, I've got all this background experience in the industry, I'm making some cloth, I wondered would I be able to come and show you. And I probably sent off a dozen letters.
Wow, that's
and I
a
got
good
about
ratio.
6 replies. Some
Wow.
people rang straight away. And so I went down and I sold my first bit of cloth to Davis and Sons, and Anderson and Shepherd commissioned a test length, and Richard Anderson with Mr. Lishak, I started a development.
Wow. How about
day.
that for, sort of certifying what you felt was the right thing to do?
Well, I mean, I definitely think I was quite happy. Like I said, it'd been 3 years and I've been going 5 days a week. I had 2 days consultancy work at the mill down the road. So that basically paid for the start-up. There was just enough to, and I didn't have any, I'm very aware that I was in a very lucky situation to be able to start up, because I was living at home, I was looking after mum. I'm not saying that was easy, but at least I knew I wasn't homeless and I wasn't going to starve, and time was very flexible. So I'd get her all set up for the day, go out 10 o'clock, come back by 6, and then do the cooking and cleaning stuff. So that meant there was the money that I earned from my bit of work that I did have could go straight into the business. It's not like I had beneficiary, not beneficiaries, dependents or anything. I don't have kids or anything. So I was in quite an unusual situation, and I'm living up here, northeast. It's a lot cheaper living than being in London. or some of the big cities. So it was a sort of set of circumstances that made it possible.
We were just,
I've lost
it was
what the question was now.
starting up. Yeah, and how the Savile Row stuff came about.
Yeah. So that's right. I think I was saying I was quite happy after 3 years and lots of weaving that I knew what I was going in and offering, and that all going well. She has her fingers crossed. All going well, it would. I could do what I said I would be able to do.
That might be the theme of this podcast.
Yes, very much so. So, bless them, Anderson and Shepherd. I stuffed up the first order for Anderson and Shepherd, and there was something that I wasn't aware of on the loom that was actually causing the pattern to be irregular, which I'd never noticed because I hadn't done a pattern like this before. And I had to ring them up and say, I'm really sorry, but that length you commissioned
after you'd finished it? So you'd put all the effort in?
Yes, because I didn't notice it. I'd woven it, I'd ordered the yarn, paid the yarn, woven it, sent it for finishing. It wasn't until it came back from finishing, because it's quite often when it comes off the loom, it can be it's what they call loom state. It's a bit like your shirt out the washing machine before it gets ironed. It has a different crinkly, it's a bit hard to see flaws because everything's not flat and smooth. Anyway, so it wasn't until it came back from the finishing and I was inspecting it again, thinking, even visually, I was going, check, doesn't look the same all the way. There's occasions where it's different. And it turned out that the let off on the back of the loom, I had a particular mechanism at that time, and basically it was letting it off slightly irregularly. So the check was changing size. Only like 1 or 1.5 millimeters or something. But if you're a bespoke tailor and it's all about
that's important stuff,
matching, that's a problem. It's important stuff. So I had to ring up Colin and bless him. He said, "Well, we've all got to start somewhere." And I said, "Well, I'd like to try again if you don't mind." And he said, "No, that's fine." So it took me 4 attempts to get it right, to work out what was going wrong with the loom, try different things. One of them got messed up because something else mechanical happened. But yeah, no, it was... I mean, by that point, I thought these people... But anyway, but they, of course, they're my biggest customer by far, and I wouldn't be here without them. So
that's wonderful that they obviously believed in you.
Well, I guess like everything, they wanted the story, so they wanted me to be able to get the work to get it to work. Thankfully I got there in the end.
Would your
and we've done
fabric
lots and lots
fabric, is that the right word? Yeah. Cloth. There you go. Would your...
Yep. I call it cloth, but
okay.
Cloth's probably a bit more of a trade word.
I like cloth.
Yeah. The tailoring trade talk about cloth.
So would your cloth be very unique in what they're offering? Being I don't know, would you call it handmade, artisan made?
Well, that's the kind of yes, it would be pretty unique because I don't really know of anybody else that's doing what I'm doing.
Right.
In the world. I mean, there are other people there's other independent weavers doing Harris tweed, which is very similar, but that's a brand in itself. and there are other people with Hattersley looms, not so much, and making cloth, making fabric, but for other things. So I suppose that's my little niche in my little market.
Yeah.
For tailoring and menswear, I guess. No, I'm certainly not the only weaver, and I'm certainly not the only Hattersley weaver. There's quite a few. But for that market, yes, it's I guess if you walk into a bespoke tailor, there's sample books, swatch books, which is called bunch books, and I've heard people say there's 10,000 fabrics to choose from. But there's an awful lot of black and an awful lot of navy blue and an awful lot of grey. And then within that, there's a probably smaller percentage that's we'd call tweeds or coloured pattern cloths, sports jacket type. So my cloth probably fits more into the sports jacket or overcoats rather than suits. That stuff's really super fine, super fine yarns. Very gosh, it would take me years to make a length because it's so fine. So there's no point in me looking at that because we've got a whole industry doing that. And in some ways, we've got a whole in Scotland and England, of course. There are big mills producing lots and lots of tweed cloths as well. So it's my cloths probably not as traditional as a lot of the traditional cloths. It's probably not as hard wearing. But there's sort of technical reasons for that. But I guess I'm catering to it's the novelty, actually. If we put it down to it, it's probably novelty more than anything else, because if you go into a bespoke tailor and you're spending money to have something made just for you that's just fits you perfectly, is something that you're gonna keep and love. Part of that is that it's about the individual, and it's custom made for you. But then if you've got the same cloth as everybody else, it doesn't. I suppose there's an added value for some people that the cloth is
I think calling
unique
it
as well.
Novelty is very I think so. I think you're being very humble and underselling I would probably call it a craft product.
Well, I think that's a sort of difficulty. I mean, and I suppose there's a part of me that I don't know. I mean, it's being something different, I guess. Individuality. So yeah, if you want to put a nicer spin on it, maybe it's about individuality, but it is also about craftsmanship, because that's where the sort of the connection with the tailoring world I've just loved, because there's people, I mean, the hand skills, the needle, the sewing skills are incredible. I still love watching and I don't know all the right terms, but when they're stitching up all the insides of the layers and layers, in true bespoke, there's layers of different types of cloth that have, one to give you structure, one to, and they're all hand stitched together, and they're so neat. And I used to love stitching, actually. So I can imagine the satisfaction of getting those rows of stitches all nice and neat, and I can relate to their practice and what they do, and totally admire it. I mean, Mum taught me dressmaking when I was, at art school. I used to make all my old clothes and things, and I even made 2 overcoats. I know. I can imagine the how they manipulate. I couldn't do it, but how they manipulate the cloth to get the shaping on the shoulders and the armholes, and so it's lovely. So if you're a customer and you appreciate that and those individual skills that they've built up relationships with their tailors and their tailors' businesses, and they love and appreciate the work that goes into that, it's not such a big jump to appreciate somebody putting that kind of love into the cloth as well. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, so it's a really good.
I couldn't agree
mix,
more.
I think. I mean, it's difficult that it's expensive, but at the same point, I mean, wouldn't you love the whole world to be able to do that and to be able to have that, but quite how the economics of that
when
would
you think
work,
about
I don't know.
The clothes being sold in a Primark or something for £2 a dress, or
Yeah, well,
economies of scale, I
no,
guess. And actually, it's probably more foreign sweatshop labor, isn't it? It's probably
a combination, cheap fabrics, synthetics, and you wonder where about the labour. Has to be. How can you possibly?
It might well be above board, but it's above board in a kind of.
So
we go to a country where the laws are different, and more. Or yes.
Or there's no laws, or and yes, it's somebody making money out of that in the middle somewhere. So
let's
move on to no, but that's the difficulty about you've got to face those
you're
tough
obviously
questions.
on the right side of that, assuming that you're treating yourself nicely.
That's
yourself?
a good question too, because well, in some ways I have. I mean, it took me, again, I can't remember all the figures, but it's probably only been, and I don't want to exaggerate, it's probably, I would say, 4 years since I've been able to fully support myself out of 10. And in that year before that, it was pretty dire. When I had to sort of find rent, when my home situation changed, that was a very tough year, and that was probably only 4 or 5 years ago. 5 years ago. So yeah, I mean, I've probably only made over minimum wage the last 2 years, maybe. But then, you live really simply, and that's, again, I'm not going out. Like, when I lived in Sydney, I was in a cafe every night after work. I mean, they were very cheap, but and you travelled more and and you had days off and things like that. But that's a choice, I don't want to sound like, oh, woe is me or anything, because it's a choice. I love doing this. I love the flexibility of it. I love doing my own thing. I like being on my own, so that's handy. Gosh, yes. Especially now it's working. I mean, there was the beginning part was quite a struggle, and you didn't know if it was going to work. I just suppose had a gut feeling and just had to keep persevering, and manage it, because, like I said, the the first time I went to sort of show my wares and I got such a good response, then the what's the word, the attraction could very much, oh right, I'll go and get more and I'll get loads of work. But actually it's still, then there was like 2 or 3 years of just managing that, but how much you took on, because things still were going wrong, so everything takes longer, and until I've had sort of 3 years in a row in a way going, yes, I know I can tackle that many orders in that amount of time. I my worst scenario was letting people down, so I grew very, 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 very slowly, and had to kind of fill that gap, leave a gap in case I needed it, but then fill it at the last minute. So it took a long time to build up to a point.
Yes, I had a period.
Sort of I'm at that level.
So generally speaking, spring is when people start thinking about building again, and so kind of through the winter, coming into spring, I'm getting a bit desperate and a bit worried, and then suddenly all the offers come in spring, and I had a year when I just said yes to everything because I thought, I was concerned about the work, and I ran myself ragged. Worked all of the hours, all of the day. I don't think I had a day off for about 4 months, and the clients weren't getting my best work. I was sort of falling apart, and that was a very, very valuable lesson in I don't panic come spring anymore, and no,
it's not sustainable, dare I say. Yeah. So how do you balance that in winter?
Do other things
in winter.
The last couple of years I've been quite lucky. So this last year and the coming year I've got solid winter work, which will see me right through. Yeah, I've sort of balanced it in a few different ways. Sometimes I just got hunkered down and kind of did my winter hibernation. Stop spending anything. Stop going to cafes.
Yeah. I mean, that's what part of that. It's all choices, isn't it? You make choices, and certainly I treat myself more now. I'm not very good at hanging on to money, so it's there to be used in my, which is why it's rarely there. As soon as a bit of money in, then yes,
what a treat.
A new jumper.
Thank you, Sam. That was so great. I really, really love that conversation so much, and I'm so very pleased to know Sam and look forward to popping in for a coffee next time I try and cycle the coast of Scotland. Right, so now I'm going to do my very best at reading the Woven in the Bone poem by Donald S. Murray. I'll be honest, I'm not very good at poetry, so I hope I'm not butchering this too much. But there will be a link in the show notes to the Woven in the Bone poem, so you can go and read at your leisure. This is from the Weaving Songs book. There is much that we overlook within the weave, hidden in lost patterns, like how a place stays us when we leave, till long after we have parted. We can see the faint glimmerings in the path, around our feet, some thrift or bird's foot trefoil, a bluebell tinkering in long grass, sea rocket soaring out of sandy soil. And too, in my ideal stretch and length of tweed, there would be reminders of steps made. Across Macaire, by the long stride of my feet, a mingling of colours, shades, of iris, primrose, gentian, centaury, a kaleidoscope of orchids so rare, that naturalists might think such flowers could never be, stitched or sewn from memory, to allow others to share. All right, as always, there are links in the show notes. Make sure you check them out. If this was your first episode, then please do subscribe so as not to miss any future episodes, and look back through the other 116 episodes. You'll find things on craft, on building, on heritage. In my opinion, all the good stuff. Equally, if you did enjoy this episode, then please do take 2 seconds to share. Put it all over your favourite social media or send it to someone on WhatsApp. I'm sure they will enjoy it. And if you've been sent this by someone, remember to say thank you. And finally, if you do find this podcast useful or entertaining, then please do consider becoming a patron. You can sign up at patreon.com/building sustainability. And of course, you get all of the extra bonuses, advert-free listening, discount courses at Netcom Craft School, and bonus content currently standing in around 10.5 hours worth. Okay, well, we have reached the end of our time together for this episode. I hope that you've enjoyed it and that you will join me again in a fortnight for another inspiring conversation. Until that time, I hope you're enjoying seeing the little signs that spring is just around the corner and the gently lengthening days. Bye-bye.